The email landed in my inbox at 7:32 a.m., the subject line cold and blunt, divorce papers. I was sipping coffee at my kitchen counter, the morning sun streaming through the window, when I opened it. The attachment was formal, clinical, a legal document severing 8 years of marriage. But it was the message above it that cut deeper. "Good luck starting over, Claire," my husband, Ethan, wrote. "You'll need it. I'm already moving on with someone who gets me. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." His words dripped with mockery, as if I were a burden he'd finally shed. My name is Claire Bennett, and at 36, I'd just been discarded via email, my life upended with a single click. The coffee went cold in my hands, but I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, a quiet resolve settled in my chest. Ethan thought he'd won, but I had a surprise ready, one he'd never see coming. Before that email, my life was a delicate balance of passion and sacrifice, rooted in the vibrant hum of our Atlanta suburb. I'd carved out a career as a freelance graphic designer, my days a whirlwind of client pitches, sketching logos on my tablet, and perfecting color palettes until the early hours. My home office was a sanctuary, its walls lined with shelves of art books, the desk cluttered with sketchpads, pens, and a corkboard pinned with memories, Ethan and me hiking in the Smoky Mountains, our wedding day under a twilight sky, toasting with cheap wine at our 5th anniversary. The room smelled of lavender candles and fresh coffee, a space where I'd built my dreams pixel by pixel. Outside, our neighborhood buzzed with life, children riding bikes down tree-lined streets, neighbors waving over picket fences, the distant hum of lawnmowers on Saturday mornings. Ethan was a real estate agent, his charisma lighting up every room, his ambition a magnet that had drawn me in when we met at a local art gallery 9 years ago. His hazel eyes sparkled as he talked about a historic home he'd just sold, and by the end of the night, we were planning a date over coffee. I fell for his vision of a future together, a bigger house, a family, weekends spent exploring Georgia's coast. We weren't flawless, money was tight when his deals fell through, and we'd argue over forgotten dishes or late nights. But I believed in our partnership, in the life we were weaving together. I'd poured my heart into our marriage, balancing my freelance work with his erratic schedule, cooking his favorite lasagna on Sundays, planning surprise trips to Savannah to keep our connection alive. My best friend, Mia, called me the glue of our relationship, a role I embraced with pride. I'd turned down lucrative design projects that conflicted with Ethan's open houses, prioritizing our shared goals over my own. Our social circle, friends from college, Ethan's real estate colleagues, my artist peers, saw us as a team, hosting barbecues in our backyard, laughing over board games until midnight. I nurtured that life every day, believing it was ours to keep. But beneath the warmth of those moments, cracks were forming, invisible to my trusting eyes. The signs of Ethan's betrayal crept in slowly, like shadows lengthening across a summer afternoon. His late nights at the office multiplied, his phone buzzing with client texts he'd answer in the garage, his voice low and guarded. He grew distant, his kisses quick and mechanical, his laughter a hollow echo of the man I'd married. I'd find receipts in his car, dinners at upscale bistros I'd never visited, bottles of Pinot Noir I didn't drink. One evening, as we watched a movie on our worn leather couch, his phone lit up with a notification from someone named Claire. I asked, my voice casual, and he waved it off with a grin. "Just a coworker, babe. You're overthinking it." I wanted to believe him, my heart warring with the doubt curling in my gut. I let it go, hating the suspicion that lingered like a bad taste. His wardrobe shifted, new tailored suits, a cedarwood cologne that felt foreign in our bedroom. I noticed a silver cufflink on his dresser, engraved with a C, not an initial we shared. "Client gift," he said when I asked, his eyes avoiding mine. I chalked it up to his job, to the pressure of closing million-dollar deals in Atlanta's cutthroat market. But the unease grew, a knot tightening with every unexplained absence. 3 months ago, I found a text on his phone, unlocked for once, reading, "Miss you already. Dinner tomorrow, from Claire." He laughed it off as a misunderstanding, a client's assistant, and I swallowed my questions, ashamed of my distrust. Then, a month before the email, I stumbled across a receipt for a weekend spa package, tucked in his briefcase, dated for a weekend he'd claimed to be at a real estate conference in Savannah. I confronted him, my voice shaking, and he deflected with charm. It was a client retreat, Claire. You know how these things are. I nodded, wanting to believe, but the seed of doubt had taken root. 2 weeks before the email, I borrowed his laptop to send a client file and found an open email from Claire, her words searing into me, "Can't wait for our weekend. Love you." My breath caught, the screen blurring as I clicked through more messages, plans for trips, intimate promises, a future without me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I saved the emails, my hands trembling, and began to watch, to listen, to prepare for the storm I knew was coming. Sitting at my kitchen counter, the divorce email glowing on my laptop, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Ethan's words, "Good luck starting over," cut like a blade, each one a mockery of the life I'd built with him. I thought of our wedding, the vows we'd whispered under a canopy of stars, the way he'd held my hand as we danced to Ella Fitzgerald. I remembered the late nights I'd stayed up designing while he slept, the weekends I'd spent cheering at his open houses, the dreams I'd deferred to support his career. My chest ached, a raw mix of grief, betrayal, and rage. I saw our friends' faces at our last barbecue, laughing over burgers, unaware of the lie Ethan was living. I thought of my parents, who'd called him son, and Mia, who'd warned me about his charm years ago. Every instinct screamed to call him, to demand answers, to unleash the pain burning inside me. But I didn't. I'd spent years solving problems, turning chaos into art with every design I crafted. This was no different. Ethan wanted me to collapse, to play the role of the broken wife he'd scripted. But I wasn't that woman. I closed the laptop, my coffee untouched, and felt a spark of defiance ignite. I wouldn't let him erase me. I'd fight back, not with tears, but with strategy, and I'd make sure he regretted every word of that email. I spent that morning alone, pacing the kitchen, the hardwood cool under my bare feet. I thought of the sacrifices I'd made, the projects I'd declined, the nights I'd waited for him to come home. I felt the weight of my trust, shattered in a single email, and the sting of his mockery, as if I were nothing without him. But I was something, someone, and I'd prove it. By noon, I knew what I had to do. I wouldn't just survive this. I'd rewrite our story, and Ethan would learn the cost of underestimating me. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was a financial gut punch, and that's where I struck first. Ethan and I had a joint account for household expenses, groceries, utilities, the occasional dinner out. But I'd always kept my freelance earnings in a separate account, a habit born from my mother's advice and one Ethan had mocked as overly cautious. Now, it was my salvation. I logged into our joint account, my fingers steady despite the anger simmering in my veins, and found a trail of withdrawals, $15,000 over 6 months, spent on restaurants with names like Le Bistro, hotels in Savannah and Charleston, and jewelry I'd never worn. Each transaction was a betrayal, a piece of our marriage siphoned off to Claire, the woman he'd chosen over me. I called my bank, my voice calm but unyielding. "I need to freeze the joint account and remove my husband as an authorized user," I said. The representative, a kind woman named Susan, asked for verification, her tone softening when I explained the situation. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Bennett," she said, processing the request in minutes. By 11:45 a.m., the account was locked, Ethan's access severed. I pictured him trying to buy Claire another extravagant dinner, his card declined, his charm failing him. The thought brought a flicker of satisfaction, but I wasn't done. I spent the next hour reviewing our financial history, pulling statements from the past year. I found more, Venmo payments to Claire with notes like, "For the weekend," or "You deserve this." I saved every transaction, every receipt, building a digital fortress of evidence. I called my lawyer, Rachel Nguyen, a woman whose sharp mind had saved me in a contract dispute 3 years ago. I emailed her Ethan's divorce papers, the mocking message, and the financial records. "He's been stealing from our marriage," I told her over the phone, my voice steady despite the tears I refused to shed. "And he thinks he can walk away with a smirk." Rachel's response was calm but fierce. "This is financial misconduct, Claire. We can demand repayment and use it to strengthen your position in the divorce. Send me everything, texts, emails, anything that shows his intent." I spent the afternoon digging deeper, unearthing a trail of deceit. I found texts Ethan hadn't deleted, forwarded to my phone from our shared cloud, messages to Claire about our new life, promises of a beach house, casual dismissals of me as needy. Each word was a wound, but it was also power. I saved them to a secure drive labeled evidence, my heart racing with purpose. Ethan thought he'd blindsided me, but I was arming myself for a fight he couldn't win. The turning point came when I remembered the rental property, a small condo in downtown Atlanta we'd bought 2 years ago as an investment. It was my idea, a way to secure our future, and I'd poured myself into it, researching listings, negotiating the price, overseeing renovations. Ethan had been too busy with his deals to care, showing up only to sign papers and complain about the cost. The condo, a sleek one-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows, was now worth $400,000, generating $2,000 a month in rental income that went into our joint account. I'd handled every detail, from choosing hardwood floors to screening tenants, while Ethan took credit at dinner parties, calling it our little empire. But here was the twist: the deed was in my name alone. We'd made that choice to simplify taxes, a decision Ethan had barely noticed, distracted by a client call when we signed the paperwork. I'd kept meticulous records, every payment, every repair, all funded from my freelance earnings. Ethan had been siphoning the rental income, assuming he'd claim half in the divorce, but he had no legal claim. I called Rachel, my pulse quickening as I realized the leverage I held. "The condo's in my name," I said. "Can we protect it?" Rachel didn't hesitate. "It's separate property, Claire. He'd need to prove significant contribution, which he can't. We'll file to exclude it from marital assets immediately." We spent an hour strategizing, Rachel outlining how we'd use the condo to anchor my financial independence. I remembered the day we bought it, Ethan distracted, me dreaming of stability. Now, that dream was mine alone, and Ethan would learn it the hard way. I called Priya, our tenant, a young doctor who'd always paid on time. I explained the situation, my voice steady but honest. "Ethan and I are divorcing," I said. "I need to update the lease to my name only." Priya was quiet for a moment, then said, "Men like that don't deserve women like you, Claire. I'll sign whatever you need." Her support, simple but fierce, bolstered my resolve. By evening, the new lease was drafted, and the condo was secure. Ethan's empire was crumbling, and I was the architect of its fall. Over the next week, I moved with the precision of a chess master, each step a deliberate strike against Ethan's arrogance. Rachel drafted a counterclaim to his divorce filing, demanding repayment of the $15,000 he'd misused from the joint account and asserting my sole ownership of the condo. We sent it to his lawyer, a move designed to hit him like a thunderbolt. I redirected the condo's rental income to my personal account, ensuring Ethan couldn't touch it. Priya signed the new lease, her signature a small victory in a war I was winning. I didn't confront Ethan directly, letting the silence build his unease. I wanted him to feel the ground shifting beneath him, to wonder what I was planning. Meanwhile, I turned to our social circle, not with vengeance, but with truth. I called Mia, my voice steady as I explained Ethan's betrayal. "He emailed me divorce papers and mocked me," I said, forwarding her the message and the financial evidence. "I need you to know who he is." Mia's anger was palpable. "He's a snake, Claire. I'm telling everyone." I shared the truth with a few close friends: Sarah, a college roommate; David, a fellow designer; and Lisa, Ethan's cousin who'd always liked me. I didn't embellish, the facts were damning enough. I showed them the emails, the transactions, the texts to Claire. Their reactions, shock, outrage, disgust, were a balm to my wounds. By week's end, our group chat was alive with fury, friends unfollowing Ethan on social media, canceling plans with him, whispering about his deceit at brunches and happy hours. I met Mia for coffee at a cozy cafe, the air thick with the scent of espresso. "He's losing it," she said, her eyes gleaming. "No one's inviting him to anything. His charm's not working anymore." I nodded, sipping my latte, feeling the power of truth ripple through our world. Ethan's reputation, his currency as the golden real estate agent, was eroding, and I hadn't raised my voice. But I wasn't done. I called Priya again, asking about Ethan's recent visits to the condo. "He came by last week," she said. "Tried to act like he owned the place, asking about the lease. I told him to talk to you." I smiled, imagining his frustration. That evening, I emailed Ethan a single line: "The condo's mine. Talk to my lawyer." Let him stew, I thought, as I closed my laptop, the weight of my actions settling like a shield around me. The consequences hit Ethan like a tidal wave, swift and unrelenting. He called me 2 days after the counterclaim was filed, his voice a chaotic blend of panic and bravado. "What is this, Claire? You're trying to ruin me with this condo nonsense." I let him rant, his words tumbling over each other, accusing me of betrayal, of vindictiveness, of destroying his life. When he paused, gasping for breath, I spoke, my tone cold and unyielding. "You emailed me divorce papers and mocked me, Ethan. You stole $15,000 from our marriage to fund your affair with Claire. Did you think I'd just sign and disappear?" He stammered, his confidence cracking. "Claire and I, it's not what you think. We can work this out, Claire. Don't do this." I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter, cutting through his desperation. "Work it out. You worked it out when you hit send. You chose to humiliate me, to steal from me. Now you deal with the fallout." I hung up, my heart pounding but my resolve a steel rod in my spine. He'd underestimated me, and that was his fatal error. The next day, Mia texted me with news: Ethan's card had been declined at a client dinner, his face red as colleagues watched. "He tried to laugh it off," she wrote, "but no one bought it." I pictured him, his polished facade crumbling, his charm useless against the truth. The condo's rental income, now flowing to my account, was untouchable, and Rachel's filings ensured it stayed that way. Ethan's lawyer pushed back, claiming he deserved a share, but Rachel dismantled their argument with bank records proving I'd funded the purchase and renovations alone. "He's got no leg to stand on," she told me, her voice brimming with confidence. Ethan's real estate deals began to falter. Clients, hearing whispers of his financial misconduct, started working with competitors. I heard from Lisa, his cousin, that Claire was pulling away, her Instagram suddenly private, her posts about new beginnings gone. Their affair, built on stolen money and stolen moments, was unraveling under the pressure of reality. I didn't gloat, but I felt a quiet triumph. Ethan's world was shrinking, and I'd lit the match. The aftermath was a turbulent sea of triumph and pain. I moved out of our shared house, unable to sleep in the bed we'd shared, the walls echoing with memories of his lies. I rented a bright apartment in Midtown, its hardwood floors gleaming under morning light, its big windows framing the Atlanta skyline. I filled it with my things, my sketchpads, my plants, a new easel for painting, a passion I'd neglected for years. But the nights were brutal. I'd wake up, my hand reaching for Ethan, only to find the empty space beside me. I'd see his email in my mind, the cruel jab of "good luck starting over," and feel the ache of betrayal all over again. I let myself grieve, not for him, but for the life I'd thought we'd have, the family we'd planned, the trust I'd given so freely. Mia was my anchor, dragging me to art galleries, forcing me to laugh at bad karaoke nights, reminding me I was more than Ethan's wife. My parents called from Savannah, their voices heavy with guilt. "We should have seen it," my mother said, her words trembling. "He fooled us all." I didn't blame them. I'd been fooled, too. I threw myself into my freelance work, my clients noticing a new edge to my designs. A local startup hired me for a major rebrand, praising my fearless vision. But the scars lingered, a reminder of what I'd endured. I'd find old photos, Ethan and me at a friend's wedding, smiling like nothing could break us, and feel a pang of loss. I boxed them up, not ready to throw them away, but unwilling to let them define me. Legally, Ethan was cornered. Rachel's counterclaim forced him to repay $12,000 from the joint account, money he scrambled to find, selling his prized golf clubs and dipping into savings. The divorce proceedings were a battle. His lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, claiming I'd trapped Ethan with the condo. Rachel was relentless, presenting bank records, emails, and Ethan's own texts to Claire, which admitted his intent to move on with her money. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, ruled in my favor. I kept the condo, my separate accounts, and 70% of our shared savings, while Ethan walked away with his car and a fraction of what he'd expected. His real estate career crumbled, his firm, embarrassed by the scandal, sidelined him to administrative work, and clients kept defecting. Claire vanished, moving to Charlotte, leaving Ethan alone in a rented studio apartment. I heard he tried to call her, begging for a second chance, but she'd blocked him. Their love story, once so glamorous, was now a cautionary tale. I didn't celebrate, but I felt the weight of justice, a quiet vindication that Ethan's choices had built his own prison. A year later, I stood in my new office, a leased space in a trendy Atlanta co-working building, its walls painted a soft sage green, its shelves lined with design awards and framed sketches. My freelance business had soared, with clients from startups to national brands clamoring for my work. I'd hired Jada, a bright young designer with a knack for bold typography, and together we were pitching a campaign for a major tech company, a project that could redefine my career. The condo was thriving, its rental income funding a scholarship I'd started for women in the arts, named after my grandmother, who'd taught me to draw. I'd reconnected with old friends, joined a hiking group that explored the Chattahoochee trails, and rediscovered painting, my easel now a fixture in my apartment. My life was full, dinners with Mia, calls with my parents, laughter with Jada over late-night coffee runs. Ethan was a ghost now, his name rarely spoken in our old circles. I heard he'd taken a low-paying job at a small real estate firm, his charm no longer enough to salvage his reputation. One evening, I met Jada for drinks at a rooftop bar, the city lights twinkling below. "You're kind of my hero," she said, her eyes earnest. "You didn't just survive, you built something bigger." I smiled, thinking of Ethan's email, the cruel sting of good luck starting over. I'd started over, not as the broken wife he'd imagined, but as a woman who'd claimed her power. I thought of the condo, the scholarship, the office, the life I'd crafted from the ashes of his betrayal. Ethan and Claire had tried to erase me, but they'd only set me free. What do you do when someone mocks your worth? You rise, you rebuild, and you make sure the world sees your light.